yesterday evening, my father-in-law passed away.
Oh,
Yeah, but fortunately, my wife who over there Friday and be there today. So I and Jean and Alex talked to the Facebook. Yeah. So she was around to she recognized with us, but she declined very fast. So unfortunately, my wife.
I'm Peter.
Pardon,
I'm Peter. What's your name?
I'm Jan.
Jan.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
We'll tell Teresa she's in
Yeah.
our prayers.
Thanks again for your support. Thank you.
Are you just visiting?
I am just passing through.
Where are you from?
I live in Portland, Oregon,
Oh,
so
wow.
flying through kind of a long way over here. So,
Well, wow.
thank you.
It's beautiful country out there.
It is, yeah.
I've only been out there once and it was on a 2-week baseball trip.
Okay.
It was, it was this company out of Wisconsin that runs baseball trips and they go all over the country. I've taken 4 of them and they went to different parts of the country. This one was out west.
To watch.
We flew to Phoenix. Right.
Okay.
The trip started from Phoenix and then we went to Anaheim and then we just went up the coast to Seattle. We saw Miami game and I don't know if they use it. And of course, we went to San Diego and Los Angeles and whatever. It was a lot of fun. But I'd never been out there before.
They're very lush. Yeah.
The only thing I didn't
They
like,
don't say well
I
to the
should have
sound,
known
but
that it could be cold. It was in August, but I had the right clothes as I went along the way.
Yeah.
That's a different ballpark because I didn't have enough sweatshirts and to wear to the games at night. And it got cool.
Yeah. It's a pretty big difference from Phoenix to Portland.
And I had to buy that Inchbro Suzuki sweatshirt and a Dodger t-shirt, a sweatshirt. All over the teams in the West.
welcome. We got some notes on here. It's got,
It's got, I'd be surprised if we've met before. Parts now.
a few years ago.
Never lived.
I was working.
Must have done it with your other church.
Okay. We were doing first.
Where are you from?
I live in Portland, Oregon now.
Oh,
So I grew up in North Carolina, been in Virginia a while. Kind of all over the
what's your
place.
name?
Peter Yukich.
Peter what?
Peter Yukich.
You can, Allen Bay.
Date.
Yes, sir.
Good meeting.
Yeah, nice to have you, just visiting Chicago or?
I'm just passing through. I just came from a mission trip in Zimbabwe.
Oh,
Too smart, got in. Yeah, but I'm long to play over. Got till.
This guy knows too much.
you gotta find out. You gotta do it.
Last leg.
Okay. Well, good.
Well, I don't know, I keep thinking there's maybe, I don't have enough distractions,
Oh.
like, so, I don't wanna say,
Well,
get
well,
negative.
Chicago.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah,
I'll be right there.
these guys are married, they have families, you know, they have other responsibilities, and that kind of affects your thinking pattern. And that doesn't affect me, but there are other single people who, you know, maybe it's just their job or whatever, I don't know, that,
Worry about your children and all sorts of stuff.
yeah.
But you came in fast, 'cause I didn't
I-
catch
I-
you
I'm not-
upstairs.
thank you.
Michelle,
Peter,
Peter,
Same,
good.
but I mean, it's the same,
Portland, Oregon.
you have responsibilities
We
and
don't-
so.
we don't need to leave from there.
Yeah,
Great.
I don't get up till
Fine.
much.
Great, what brings you to Chicago?
Can't take a
No,
break.
it's just past the, you know, whatever, I don't have this trip in Zimbabwe.
Oh, boy.
Got a long way over here.
Yeah.
To stay in Zimbabwe or to visit?
Just visit, I was just there for a week.
Okay, wow. Low.
Head west again.
Wow.
There you go, Danny.
Danny?
Yes, sir. Good. So we gotta do.
Are you gonna do anything with the church in Zimbabwe or just?
Well, I was just going to visit churches there, went with a couple of folks from a church in Portland. So we visited a bunch of churches, just talked to a lot of people, preach and talk a bit.
Good.
Very full week.
Yeah, it sounds like a short stay, yeah. Way back in the day, we had a guy here for about 2 years who had like spent about half his life in Zimbabwe because his dad, Robert Rees, and his father was John Rees. I don't know, they were big in the Churches of Christ in Africa anyway. So, but they're all old now, so you're generations away from that, but, yeah, it's such a tough time. Is that old president still there?
Mugabe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, he was there from like independence on.
30 some years.
It was a difficult time, I think, right?
I don't know, I think it's been rough. That's
Rough,
what that
yeah.
means.
Wow, I hope it goes well.
Now, how long were you there?
He's going.
Oh, you're on your way. I thought
Yeah, I'm
you
on the way
said.
back.
Oh, on the way back.
It is.
On the way back, okay, oh.
Going back.
Oh, okay. How long do you plan to be there?
Well, I was there
He's
for,
going back to Oregon, I got that wrong.
Okay,
so, it was a short trip.
Okay.
okay. We're glad you're with us and,
It's good to be here.
we've been, going through the New Testament at a slow pace, but, we'll get there. We're not in any hurry, right, Michael? We're in the letter of Peter to churches, people. In what we call, I think we're still in the second chapter. And
I think he's got, either a ninth or.
I think we were just about to go into the thing about slaves.
yeah, the 18th verse, we talked about submission to rulers and masters, which is what the caption is in this edition. But let's put it in context here. Does Peter just kind of randomly decide to talk about submission and then about slavery? How does he get to that point? Sometimes we can try to trace a logical progression through the minds of the writers. Sometimes they just pick up to something new, but I think he's expanding on what he mentioned in verse 12. He talks about the church as a chosen people and as a holy nation, a people belonging to God. And then what does that mean in practice? It gets back to Patrick's sermon, isn't it? Is the church just a passive group? Or does it have some meaning in action? And Peter suggests that it has some consequences in the way we live live our lives. And so he says, live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. And we talk about good deeds, and we know what good deeds are to a certain extent. If someone asks us for something, for some help, we help them, and that's a good deed. But what more does it mean in practice to live good lives? And so I think these are some of the things that come to his mind as to what that means on a day-to-day basis. It's not, we're all in that category of, if someone wants us to do something, yeah, we can do a good deed. But what does it mean just day to day? And so he says, submit yourself for the Lord's sake to the authorities. Be good citizens, we might say in this time. Live as free men, but do not use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Live as servants of God. And so that's what the key thought is, perhaps, as we move down into the 18th verse. Live as servants of God. And he says, in the case of slaves, submit yourselves to your masters with all respect, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. And why do you suppose this comes to his mind? What might be another way to live? Maybe that's not a clear question. But he said up above, live as servants of God. And so the temptation might be to say, I'm a servant of God. I don't have to pay any attention to anybody else. I don't have to listen to the boss at work. I don't have to listen to anybody. I'm just going to kind of do my thing. And so maybe this slavery situation is kind of the extreme example of that.
Well, I think verse 13, submit yourselves to the Lord for every human institution, but the king or one in authority.
Yes.
So I think that, his idea is, wherever you're at, you have to submit to authority. Okay. And of course, he brought up the idea that, well, I'm a Christian now. I have freedom. I have freedom. Christ is my master. I don't need to listen to you.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Three Stooges episode where, the sergeant says something and Curly says, well, he's not my boss, this guy with a beard.
Yeah.
Pertaining to Uncle Sam being the boss,
And we kind of laugh at that, but that's the way we sometimes are, isn't it? This guy, he's not fair to me. I'm not going to be fair to him, the boss. I'm going to take advantage. I'm going to get away with whatever I can get away with. And especially, it may be you're in an involuntary situation, as slavery sometimes was in the Roman Empire. Submit yourselves with all respect. For it is commendable if a man bears up under the pain of unjust suffering because he is conscious of God. That's another tough one. How can that honor God if we endure something that's unfair? Shouldn't we be protesting? Shouldn't we be rebelling against that?
Well, verse 21 kind of answers that.
Okay. Go ahead, you want
To read it?
to? Sure.
Yeah, it says, for you have been called for this purpose, think it's referring to suffering justly in verse 20, since Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example for you to follow in his steps.
Yeah.
Then 22:11, who committed no sin, nor was any deceit found in his mouth.
And we can remember especially when he was on trial, Jesus allowed himself to be railroaded, or however we might want to describe that, treated unfairly at his trial, trial, and set an example there. He was silent in the face of so many of the accusations. So, and that's a little bit counterintuitive, isn't it? That we serve Jesus by being taken advantage of sometimes. How can that possibly work?
Well, you might, have somebody approach you and, asking for money or something, and, you might give it to them, and then they go and buy alcohol with it, or
Oh,
something
boy,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And, okay, well, they took advantage of me, of my generosity, but, it's not up to you to judge. They could just as easily, use it to buy food or something that they really needed. So I guess it's not for us to judge them, but try to do good.
Yeah, try to do good. Try to do good.
I just, this passage, it always bothers me because of, how it was perverted to justify slavery in the United States and other countries in the past, and and I think you have to remember that in the Roman Empire, they didn't have slavery based on race.
Yeah.
It was people who had been part of a nation that had been conquered by Rome. They might have been taken into slavery, or I think also a person, if they had a debt that they couldn't pay.
Yeah.
Often them, or in some cases their children,
Yeah,
might
families.
be put into slavery because of that. So there were other reasons for it, but this kind of passage here was used to say that that slavery was
Yeah.
okay, that it was sanctioned in the Bible.
The example that Peter cited of Jesus, of course, is the one that Peter says, keep that before you, that Christ suffered. And the consequence of following Jesus is also suffering. And again, it's not intuitive how that can resolve itself into something good. Well, in the case of Jesus, his suffering led to his death and his resurrection and to forgiveness of sins for us. But it's sometimes hard to see how our giving way to a harsh boss or to a difficult situation can lead to good.
Oh, sorry. Well, I do think there is a blessing in that, because in verse 19 it says, "For this finds favor if a person endures the sorrow of some grieving."
Yeah.
The sorrow of suffering unjustly because of the awareness of the will of God. So, like, in one sense, you might not see the blessing in that, but God finding favor on us is the blessed out. I mean, he did it for Christ, technically.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What came to my mind is a verse from Acts chapter 5 where it says the disciples, let's turn to Acts 5:41. uh, where there was some persecution. The apostles left the Sanhedrin rejoicing because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name. You know, again, that's a little counterintuitive. How's that going to result in anything good? It's kind of humiliating to suffer punishment for doing wrong when you didn't do any wrong. How can that be something that results in a good, brings about a good result? And yet,
We looked at Jesus, right?
it didn't.
He suffered a lot for
That's
doing
the-
nothing but right, and look at all the good that's come out of his
That's-
life. There's still a great influence in the world today. We wouldn't wanna live in this world if it weren't Jesus. I don't think of his influence, there'd be that much more evil going on, if it's even existing.
That's right.
Right?
The idea is
Allowed.
that we don't retaliate when we're mistreated, okay, and continue to do what is right, what is good.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think that the example of Christ is a yes man. Okay, oh, yes to everything, yes to everything. For example, we come, people would come to the church building and, when there was Vietnamese service or even the youth group on Friday nights and ask for things. And, I would ask, like, when I was employed there ask my supervisor, and he's like, well, you can do this, but we're not doing this. And they'd come to the door and ask for money, ask for bus passes, food. Well, they might give them like some canned food or something as well.
Yeah.
Give them some canned food or stuff like that. But so what I'm trying to say is there's some disciplinary measures against, outsiders who just want to come in and take advantage of everything. Okay, yeah, well, I'm gonna come here, here in Northwest Church of Christ, I need money to get to Michigan or something like that. Well, our policy is we don't give out money.
That's
Or
right.
we don't give out train tickets to Amtrak, so you get to Michigan,
I think here if we've erred on the other way. We don't turn people away. And, that sometimes as a Christians, we tend to say, well, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for your situation. And that's powerful and that's good. But sometimes maybe we need to respond in a tangible way and show that our prayers bring forth something out of our pockets or something that we can do.
Well, the context is not the same here as it is over there.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of people on the streets coming over there, and this is
In
very
uptown.
residential. But
Yeah,
I'm not saying somebody comes by and says, hey, I need bus fare. Okay, fine, I'll put you on the train. Okay, I'll pay for your train fare, your
yeah.
CTA fare, not a problem, okay, no, I don't want that, I just give you the money. Well, that's different,
Well, we've all seen a lot of that around Chicago.
And of course, somebody's at the bus stop and they ask for a couple of dollars for the bus, you give them a couple of dollars for the bus, and then they walk away. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to say is that, well, sometimes there's a judgment call that, I'll help you out, and there's a judgment call that say, well, I tried to help that person out, and they just, they lied and they wanted to do something else, but at the same time, I just don't think that it's just yes to everybody who comes up to you and there's discipline.
Yeah, it's tough to judge.
Yeah.
And the problem is if you see, like you say, someone taking advantage of you, maybe it hardens you for the next time and it's somebody that really is in need. So, maybe the answer is how do we live a good life as Christians, as stewards of what we have? Anyway, what would Jesus have done? It's the question. What would Jesus do?
Trying to say something.
Go
Every
ahead.
system we work in is corrupt, so we can't change the entire system or spend your entire life railing against the deficiencies in an earthly system of government. They're all corrupt. But
Yeah,
there's a way to work for God and do the right thing within that. I mean, that's the example of Daniel.
okay,
He worked for
corrupt division.
multiple kings that were idolaters. And his work in some ways, I guess, served to perpetuate those systems, and yet he was a man of faith despite that.
Yeah.
I mean,
It did
So I
prosper.
mean, that shows that it's not fair to just say if you're within a system that stands for a certain thing, if you don't actively fight against it all the time, then you stand for that too.
Yeah,
That's not the biblical example. Jesus didn't work to topple the Roman Empire.
yeah,
He could have, but it was possible for him to be a person of faith
so
without
God,
doing that.
yeah, what God works in a different way than humans would work. He sees power in suffering. And that's, I guess, the answer that Peter is getting at here. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. What does that tell us? Jesus entrusted himself to God. But at the end, there is going to come a judgment. There is going to come a time when right and wrong will receive what they deserve. And that's what we have to trust in God to accomplish. So, anyway,
I think Jesus would basically say, give them the benefit of the doubt.
that's right.
You know, sometimes we really doubt somebody's being legitimate in their request, but he also he said, give to those who ask, right? So that's, in a way, we give them the benefit of the doubt and we help them out at least once. Maybe if we learn that that person is taking that money and using it for some drugs, let's say illegal drugs or something, well, then we learn our lesson. We don't give it to them again. We don't want to enable that person to go out and buy illegal drugs. But yeah, we still have that spirit though. That's a loving spirit when you give them a benefit of the doubt.
That's
I
right.
think that's what we try to do here at Northwest, right? Somebody gives us a request, maybe it's questionable, we still help them out. Try to go at least a little ways with them.
You can't outgive God. The more you give, the more he'll bless and help you. Really. So, anyway, this is how Peter's, how do you live from day to day? For you are like sheep going astray, but now you have returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls. That was it. Is that anybody else have a different translation? This is the NIV.
Yeah, New American Standard is talking about just 25.
Yeah, read that. For me.
Yes, for you are continually straying like sheep, and now you have returned to the shepherd and guardian of your souls.
Returned. You've returned. That struck me. How have you returned? You started out with it, but led astray into sin, but you've returned. That suggests that we started out with the blessings of God, but we turn away when we're tempted by the world, and then we come back through Jesus. So it just, that word return struck me.
Be struckful, turn back.
With that,
Be struckful to turn back.
Okay,
So the word is mean.
Yeah.
It means to turn back. Turn.
you've returned,
All through our lives, we keep doing that though, right? We keep returning back to Jesus.
okay,
And the time that we don't turn back to Jesus, then we're weakening our faith or we're just being disobedient or something. But it's, I think, the life of a Christian is constantly one of turning to Jesus. We have a,
yeah,
that our
That's a good
nature is
point.
pulling us the other way, right? Be self-centered, be selfish, and we have to keep turning to Jesus to be unselfish and unself-centered, you know? And it's a constant, I think, a process that we just stay with
that's,
all through our life. You know?
that's a word that I was just gonna bring, a process, because Peter, as we've seen in several places, talks about salvation as something that we're working toward, as something that we're working on. Yes, we're saved, but it's something we're still working on as a process.
I think the same word is used in Thessalonians, from Paul speaking about how the Thessalonians turned away from idols to true living God. He returned back. I'll check on that, but I'm sure the same word there.
Yeah.
So, turning away from the idols
Turning away.
to the living God. I'll check on that, confirm it, but yeah.
But yeah, our progress, we wish it was a straight line. But like Dan points it out, there's some ups and downs. And hopefully, we're going in an upward direction ultimately.
Yeah.
So,
You don't just turn to Jesus once when you get baptized.
Yeah.
I think some people have that idea. Yeah, I repented of my sins, I got baptized, now I'm saved, and I don't have to keep turning back, but that's not realistic.
well, the next chapter, he goes into not slaves, but wives and husbands. So again,
We get a touchy subject.
we can say, as he just, well, I'll talk about wives and husbands now. But again, I think he's following up on that same thought. Live such good lives that people can't say in any way you're doing wrong. But here he says, wives in the same way as what? The slave. Right? Be submissive to your husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives. We could turn back to Ephesians, wives, submit yourself to your husbands, Ephesians chapter 5. It also says submit yourselves one to another. But here, what's the purpose here? What's the basis of this particular admonition?
The key word is submission.
Okay.
That's part of our salvation. We submit to Jesus. And that's how that's our lifestyle, basically.
I think, and that's a key word, but another one is won over.
No, they may be.
What's that?
So maybe you don't have to submit to your Christian husband. Just joking.
Right.
I'm not clear, but some place in church history, was it the Huns? Oh my gosh, it was Germany, the tribes that they came in and they killed or attacked the Christian community. They took the women, and the women eventually evangelized their husbands, and they believed in Christ. This is pretty early, well, maybe second century. So I don't remember the exact details of the story. I just remember hearing that story. So recently, I heard the wife of the Duck Dynasty talking about her marriage to her husband, and she was like, wow, he did a lot of work in the beginning or something like that, so, but, it's not unheard of that sometimes the wives do straighten out their husbands, guys who are messed up and the women like, come on, knock it off, and,
Anyway, But
It's not about a general principle, always exception.
I think the general principle is what? Keep your focus in your mind on spiritual goals. Here, a goal is saving a soul, that you might save the soul of your husband. And that, is that what we keep in mind as we deal from day to day with the boss, with fellow workers, with other people that we come in contact, fellow students, or
Yeah.
how can I save them? How can I bring them to Christ? What kind of a life, what kind of an attitude leads to that? To being winning.
Attitude of submission, I would say.
Yeah, that's what he
Submitting to
says.
Christ. You're gonna be concerned about other people's souls, because he said to reach out to people that are lost.
That's right.
So you're right, you need to be cognizant of all the lost people around us every day. As I said a few weeks ago upstairs, anywhere we go as a Christian is a mission field. And I may seem over the top, it is a little over the top, but that's realistically what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be aware of the souls around us, whether they're lost or if we know that they're saved, that's great. But most people around us are not saved. They have not been churched, they have not been baptized, they don't know the word of God, and we're to be aware of that and do anything we can think of to try to reach out to that person. That's what I meant when I said we're on the mission field, whether it's at work or in the neighborhood or at a party, whatever it is. I mean, that's the ideal. I stand by that statement. I heard some people gasp when I said that in the audience. I said that in the audience. They just kind of blew them away. But I think that's the way it's really supposed to be.
We're in Chicago, we see all kinds of people out there, and we ride the trains and the buses perhaps, that walk around, and we can look upon them and categorize them in different ways, and but ultimately, these are people that need to know Jesus. People that need to know Jesus, and we have perhaps a better opportunity that if we know these people. We sit next to somebody on the subway, it's hard to get them going. Maybe if you're reading the Bible on the subway, we can start a conversation about that. Anyway, but the people that are the best prospects, I guess. That's why he talks about wives and husbands.
Know them pretty good, don't we?
Yeah.
Know them better than anybody.
When they see the purity and reverence of your lives, your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as braided hair and the wearing of gold jewelry and fine clothes. Anybody got that here, by the way? Braided hair, fine
I
clothes.
think that the NIV and ESV, kind of like closer to the Greek. I mean, the NAS has dresses, but it's too specific. The word is generally means just clothing.
The point
The word
is,
there is used for clothing, so the NIV and ESV are closer to the meaning,
yeah,
women's apparel. The Bible is.
men can have some pretty wild apparel.
Jewelry.
We downplay the external appearance, and I'm not trying to say that. We downplay the external appearance and overemphasize the internal parts, like, we're supposed to be praying, your appearance doesn't really matter to God. Jesus says this also to his disciples, and do not worry about what you're gonna wear, okay?
Right.
The lilies of the field, i.e. don't go chasing after, the finer things, not to say that you can't have finer things, but.
I don't necessarily say these are absolutely forbidden. What comes to my mind, my wife is gonna sing in a concert this afternoon, and what are you gonna wear? Black. Wear black. Why? My son plays the trumpet in an orchestra. What do they wear? Black. Why? They don't want you paying attention to the individual. They want you to pay attention to the music, whether it's symphony music or popular music.
We have more directions, not to wear flashy jewelry.
Okay.
They don't want Yeah, so
It's
keep it
also
modest.
considered more formal, though, isn't it? And I always thought it was they want to be more formal.
No, the ultimate
Elegant color,
purpose is so you don't pay attention.
Somebody
to
wears
the-
red, they're gonna stand out on the other
Makes
side.
sense.
But that's the point in our Christian lives, isn't it? We don't want someone looking at us because we're dressed a certain way. We don't want somebody looking at us because of our hairstyle or whatever it is.
Wearing fancy gold, you know.
We want people to look at us ultimately and see Jesus. And how do you do that? You probably don't wear black every day in your
Look
life.
like the Amish.
But to dress with modesty, and that's what he says, what comes out should be the way that you act. Your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. That's what we want to be, worthy in God's sight.
So, yeah, I just wanted to bring out the idea that the word of God does discuss our appearance, just as a Christian cannot walk around and look like the way you want to look like. Okay, it has something, it does discuss our appearance, and some arguments, even if it doesn't say something like, the issue like tattoos in the New Testament, I think you can make certain arguments about your appearance from both Old Testament and New Testament, that God is concerned about your appearance, not to say, all I wanted to do was emphasize that the Bible does speak about our appearance. We cannot just sit there and say, well, my appearance doesn't matter.
Right.
What really matters is what's going on inside me. I'm faithful to Jesus. Yeah, but there's more than just I'm being faithful to Jesus, is to be the people of God. So there's certain conduct that we're supposed to follow.
Yeah.
So, brother, if I understand the text correctly though, 3 and 4, which is all one sentence, one thought there, is emphasizing the person of the heart, the inner person, over and above
Right.
external things.
Yeah.
Right, and I agree. I'm just adding on to the fact that, just don't think that your appearance doesn't matter. I mean, that your appearance does matter. And you can, I'm not saying go out and buy, I'm not saying women, if women should be wearing ballroom gowns and men should be in tuxedos, and that's what God wants. I'm just trying to say is that Christianity is mind, body, and soul. I mean, you're not gonna just sit there and say, I'm gonna put on all that matters is just my attitude.
Well, I think the bottom line is your Christianity is gonna affect what you wear. Okay, let's put it, why we leave it at that. It will, like the teachings like this are gonna teach us not to go to extremes in your dress.
Right.
It doesn't say, you look like a hobo either. So I think we're to, dress in moderation, basically. Don't emphasize the clothes, emphasize what's inside. The bottom line, I think the Old Testament and New Testament.
The Israelites were to wash their clothes and when they presented themselves to God.
Yeah, and to clean up. Yeah,
So they had some thought of your appearance when you appear before God. The law says Israel should not have tattoos. That was the rule under the law. But
I think some people get off on those tattoos.
we're not subject to the law, but it still kind of suggests to us what God's attitude may be to the human body. But anyway.
And to throw something in a different direction, I heard a preacher one time saying that he was serving a church that was composed of mink farmers. And, he's like, you would get a whiff of those farmers.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that I'm not trying to say they should have bathed, I'm just simply saying that there's certain contexts.
Yeah. I've heard, I was at a conference one time where some Christian college students said, but a tattoo can serve to remind me to pray or to remind me of God. Probably not one of these.
Probably had a little fish on his wrist or something. That's okay, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
But as you say, the bottom line is what's inside.
People spend a lot of money on tattoos.
For this is the way the holy women of the past who put their hope in God used to make themselves beautiful. They were submissive to their own husbands, like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her master. And so it's respect. You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. Not give way to fear. How do you give way to fear?
Or you could be a people pleaser, you know, thinking too much about what other people think about you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, now you can go to extreme with that,
fear
Not
of
to
what
be people
others might
pleasers.
think of you,
be
yeah,
God pleaser.
that's right.
So you give into that, and it could be a bad thing.
Sarah would use that term in one place we could turn to Genesis, but she was the one who spoke her mind too, right?
She's also a beautiful woman too.
Yeah,
Got her in trouble a couple times with Abraham, with the other men wanting his woman, you know, his wife. So she must, I would expect she was adorned very, very nicely, beautifully.
anyway, any more on wives and husbands? Just the way that wives treat husbands and husbands treat wives in a group setting is an example. If there's respect, mutual respect, and that sets an example, doesn't it? We've seen other run into some husbands and wives that you could tell things were not really well with them, and you know, that would interfere with the Christian witness. But it can be a powerful
Yeah,
example.
Ideally, the divorce rate in the church should be 0, you know, but out in the society, it's
Yeah.
50% or more. So if we don't set that kind of example, it's very sad.
Well, yeah, but I mean.
I know it's not
That
never
has
gonna
to
be 0.
you know, the men who are in the church are not necessarily perfect.
No,
And
neither are women.
no woman, in my opinion, should submit herself to the point where she puts herself in,
No, there are reasons, legitimate reasons to divorce.
by staying with an abusive man. So,
Well,
you know,
Well, that man's
There
not being
are-
a Christian if he's abusive to his wife.
Well, I think
That's
that
for sure.
the Bible allows for disciplinary action, okay, I mean, you know, it's very clear that, go to, you know, your brother doesn't listen to you, you know, you get your witnesses, doesn't listen, you tell it to the church. And I see no problem with, maybe I'm wrong, or misunderstanding what Jesus had to say, that, you know, you can, you know, if you have to discipline the other person, then discipline the other person, and that means you have to call the police, then, you know, or report it to tribal authorities, or whoever would be in charge, or whatever, I mean.
Yeah, we don't suffer abuse. I mean, in submissiveness. There's a husbands in the same way be considerate as you live with your wives and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. That's interesting. Way you treat your wife can hinder your prayers, he says. I wonder if that works in other contexts. If we make mistakes, if we treat other people badly and unfairly.
Could, it seems like it could carry over.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that, but.
And
Like it
again, there's always the point that when we think of these things, we so often think of things that we do that we shouldn't have done. The other side of the coin is things that we should have done that we didn't do. Maybe those can hinder our prayers too. maybe situations where we should have spoken up for Jesus, but we were a little bit too bashful or cowardly to do that. Maybe that can be in home too, maybe some act of love or service that we should have undertaken for our wives will say that. That if we don't do it, it can hinder our prayers. It's two sides. So often we talk about wrongdoing in the context of affirmative things rather than passively doing nothing. But I think it works both ways. So.
There's also the element of forgiveness too. We're all gonna have to be
Yes.
forgiven a lot of things to get to heaven. And that's where grace comes in. There are little things, big things, whatever. That's just the way it works. We're not that perfect. But thank God for grace for that.
So, well, that's our time. Thank you for your thoughts and comments on what these words mean to you, and we can benefit from one another. That's how we learn. So,
You have a great week.
yeah.
Take care.
You're done with school.
Almost.
I mean, CPS,
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
It's a big one.
School's out for something.
Okay.
It's a big one.
Sure is. More stress.
I can see the teachers just,
Rough, take a break. Yeah. You need your prayer.
thank you.
Let's talk to Alan a little bit. Lizzie as well? What time?
You guys got married, did you promise to obey?
No, you were in South Africa?
They figured that
Zimbabwe.
out for the most part.
We had- Remember, Jack,
I thought six.
Did you promise to
hear you.
obey Alan?
I didn't hear you. I don't,
Yes.
did I promise to obey you? I think so.
No.
I was very under-rested that day.
They've taken that out of the marriage ceremony.
People write their own stuff and whatever.
Women are offended by having to say they're going to obey,
You got married?
which I understand.
Yeah, you were the theological school.
Gotta have an understanding, I guess.
I think they also took out with all my worldly goods I do.
Yeah, yeah.
All my worldly goods I have.
No way. You can't have my junk. No.